who are here, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but the speaker series is not the only thing that we do as part of our diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. We do feel very passionately about our speaker series. Our mission is to make sure that we are bringing a diverse set of voices to the Keystone audience to help us broaden our perspective and learn more from folks of diverse backgrounds. We also have a community action work stream where we try to get involved in our communities and do great work every day. We also have a lot of work that we're doing around diversifying our talent network. So if you're interested in helping us continue to bring great speakers to Keystone, work within our communities or diversify our talent network, please feel free to reach out to myself and I will put you in touch with the right people. But this is what we're here for today, is our DEI speaker series. As you know, Keystone cares a lot about hearing from different voices and championing folks in different backgrounds. We have recently started creating a safe space for conversation specifically on DEI topics, in addition to bringing in diverse academics and professionals to teach us about the industry. So today is one of those conversations. We're creating a safe space to have a conversation on pride, to have a conversation specifically about the value and intent of DEI, as well as a conversation about gender. So I don't want to steal the thunder. I'll hand things off to Jen to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole. And hi, everybody. I've met most of you. For those I haven't met, my name is Jen. I use pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm based in our San Francisco office. And I am thrilled to welcome today our speaker, Dawn Ennis. Dawn Ennis, she, her, hers, will speak to us today about the importance of DEI efforts and how we can build and sustain at Keystone an inclusive, equitable culture for transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming individuals. I have a couple of background pieces of information about Dawn, which is great context for our discussion today. So Dawn is a columnist and regular contributor to Forbes. In addition to being an award-winning journalist, Dawn is a sports editor for the Los Angeles Blade, an on-air correspondent for Connecticut Voice Out Loud, and hosts the RiseUP With Dawn Ennis talk show. Dawn's personal history serves her very well for the topics she's going to discuss with us today. In 2013, Dawn was the first transgender journalist to come out in network TV news. She subsequently served as the first out trans editor at The Advocate, LGBTQ Nation, and Outsports.com, which she led as managing editor and podcast team manager for 2.5 years. Before coming out, Dawn worked in the newsrooms of ABC, CBS, CNN, and NBC, as well as at TV stations across the country as a writer, producer, and news manager. Her blogs about her transition and life experiences are at links which we'll share with you after our discussion. Dawn is a professor of many more topics than I thought it was possible to be an expert in. Those are journalism, feature writing, sports reporting, advertising, public relations, podcasting, and media literacy at the University of Hartford. And she also manages the university's state-of-the-art podcast studio and is pursuing her master's degree in communications. This week, even more so than other times, these topics are top of mind for us, and they have taken on a deep urgency, with last week's Supreme Court ruling removing reproductive rights and the multiple ongoing essays to reduce trans and LGBTQ rights. These topics have a great urgency, and we will listen intently and with purpose today, Dawn. We're so excited to welcome you, Dawn. Please join me, everybody, in welcoming Dawn to Keystone.
Thank you so much. And it's nice that we have someone who actually lived in Ennis, who knows how to pronounce Ennis, so that nobody calls me Dawn Ennis or penis or anus, like I used to hear in grade school. So to everyone, happy Pride. And even if you don't celebrate Pride, happy almost Independence Day. I'm really honored to be with you. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint right now, which I promise you, it will not glaze your eyes over and it will not bore you. But at the same time, you don't have to pay special attention to reading as much as me talking. So let me start that right now. Here it comes. And bang and boom. And I've got to hit this button over here, which makes it go full screen. And where is that button? Slideshow, fly from start. There it is. So not realizing I had to incorporate the little boxes on the right-hand side, I'm going to use the top left of the little tabs on the top to minimize your pictures. I'm sorry about that. I want to take a look at your faces, but so you can see the screen and I can see it, I've minimized that little part. So this is a conversation about the value and intent of DEI efforts and how to create a more equitable and inclusive space for transgender and gender nonconforming people. So I think we all know this, but just in case, let's all be on the same page here. What does the acronym DEI mean? Well, for those who don't know, it does not stand for Dinosaurs, Eve, and her idiot husband. Where did I get that from? Well, actually, there was a Catholic priest who said, quote, Adam was an idiot. If it hadn't been for him and Eve eating all the fruit, you and I would be living in paradise in the Garden of Eden right now. I don't know if that's true, but it's a funny story. As we all know, DEI equals diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for some of you, maybe many of you, this part will probably be secondhand knowledge. You already know this, but let's make sure everybody understands. Diversity is defined as the practice or quality of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientations, etc. Here's a little example of what diversity can look like. As race, as ethnicity, sex, gender, ancestry. There's even things that I didn't even think about, like comorbidities and concurrent medications, genetics. That can all be part of diversity. What about equity? Well, equity is defined as the quality of being fair and impartial. Equity is not the same as equality. Equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. If that didn't make sense, here's an image. We have these three kids who are basically stealing from the baseball stadium by looking over the fence to watch the baseball game. If it's equality, everybody has an equal sized box, but that doesn't work for every single person. If it's equity, the smallest among us gets 2 boxes. The middle one, the Goldilocks one, gets only 1 box. And the person who doesn't need a box at all doesn't need a box. That's equity. Now, what about inclusion? The third element of DEI. That's defined as the action or state of including or of being included within a group or a structure. It's also defined as the practice or policy of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those who have a physical or mental disability, members of other minority groups. Inclusion is not the same as diversity. So here's like a Where's Waldo picture. Take a look at this picture and tell me, do you see someone who might look like you or your coworker or your boss or your spouse or your child? That's what diversity is. And inclusion is that you are represented, included in that group. Yes, there's a whole bunch of different faces, but inclusion is being actually given equal access to those opportunities. Here's another way of looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think people like to see pictures, so here they are. Think of diversity as like a conference table, different people, different perspectives. Equity, again, with the soapboxes, policy and practice. And inclusion is kumbaya. We're all in a circle. We're all together. We're representing all voices and visions. And if that doesn't make it clear to you, here's one more. These 3 circles are pretty much equal, but they mean different things. Diversity is representation of various identities, differences. Equity is fair and equitable treatment, access and opportunity. And inclusion, one more time, is the effort to create environments to respect and value all people. I think we've all got it now. But let's talk about the value and also, I'm just gonna move this out of my way, and intent of DEI efforts. So I work for Forbes as a contributor and columnist, and we've identified 15 benefits of diversity, equity, inclusion that any business, any client, any organization, whether profit or nonprofit, can implement to improve conditions for their employees and customers. Some of these overlap, so bear with me as we go through what 15 business leaders, academics, and innovators in DEI say about the value and intent of DEI. Number 1 is inclusion drives profitability. For for-profit businesses, profits are everything, right? We want to be in the black, not in the red. So Claire Schmidt wrote that companies employing as many men as women managed to produce up to 41% higher revenue. Not more women, not more men, but equal equity. More inclusive organizations are more engaged, creative, and successful. And she found that highly inclusive companies are more likely to hit their financial target goals by up to 120%. Well, that's what this CEO said. But my question to you is, wait, how do we know this is true? Well, McKinsey & Company, which I agree has a checkered record, but they put out an annual review called Diversity Wins. And their analysis reaffirms the strong business case for gender, ethnic, and cultural diversity in corporate leadership. And it shows it continues to strengthen over time. Their conclusion is the most diverse companies are more likely than ever to outperform less diverse peers on profitability. Number 2, diversity equals excellence. This is from Darren Kimball, principal and CEO of Get5. He says, focusing on diversity isn't just the right thing to do, it's actually good for your bottom line. Diversity of gender, race, nationality, creed, sexuality, everything else means you're better representing what the world looks like, represent your customer base and whomever you cater to. It also means a wealth of ideas and input that you might not have thought of, elevating your work at every level. On a side note, I've interviewed the CEO of Intuit, and he told me he gets letters from people saying that they don't like his diversity and inclusion plans. And he says to them, if you don't like how we do business, then you should go somewhere else because we are committed to DEI. That's a pretty bold statement. Number 3, DEI helps employees feel safe, respected, and connected. Imagine working somewhere where you don't feel that way. It's important, says Jennifer Reamer, to encourage employees to bring their whole selves to work, to celebrate them for all that they are. Let me pause for a second. When I was working at ABC News, I had to pretend and basically mimic what I thought everyone thought a man would be. I couldn't be my true self. I wasn't giving 100% because I was working so hard at hiding my true self. In 2013, 9 years ago, I came out and was able to do a better job because I wasn't focusing energy on protecting a secret anymore. I was who I am, the woman I am. Number 2 of number 3, promoting and highlighting DEI efforts helps employees feel safe, respected, more connected, leading to a stronger sense of community and increased productivity, which is very important to the bottom line. And she says this drives happier, more engaged humans. Number 4, diverse teams innovate faster. If you're not innovating, you're being left behind. So according to Christina Johnson, she's the chief people officer at Okta, DEI efforts offer countless benefits, but employees need to recognize their own economic impact. In addition to that study by McKinsey, research shows that organizations with diverse leaders and employees innovate at a faster rate. That's because diversity of thought fuels new product development and generates opportunities for everyone. That is certainly something to benefit from with DEI. So here's Victoria Pelletier. She says DEI drives improved business outcomes. It breeds creativity, innovation, we just talked about, enhanced employee belonging and engagement overall. In turn, she says these lead to improved business outcomes and success, not just in terms of revenue growth, which we're not gonna lie, that's important. Improved profitability, that's important too, but happier colleagues. Imagine working someplace where people are happy. What's that like? Number 6, we're halfway through, a sense of belonging. We talked a little bit about this. DEI efforts help cultivate an environment where employees feel a sense that they belong to something bigger than themselves, an openness, safety, where their ideas are welcomed. So when they bring ideas to the table and they are from diverse mindsets, that becomes a driving force by which organizations, there it is a word again, innovate, plus evolve and thrive. She's founder and CEO of Work Exceptional LLC. He is, Jeffrey, sorry. Now, here's Charles Hips. All employees are welcome and encouraged to thrive, says Charles Hips. Employee support for DEI is most critical for the purpose of promoting belonging across the business. So if you explain where the workforce fits into the initiatives, so people understand what's the plan here, what's going on, I'm part of this company, how do I fit in, how does my identity fit in? That helps illuminate the benefit for everyone, because it's not just the marginalized or the majority, It's everyone that's involved. And it helps create and develop a culture where all employees are welcomed and encouraged to thrive. I want to underline that. All employees. It's not just for people of a certain minority group or marginalized group. It's for everyone. That's Charles Hips, founder and CEO of a company in the UK called Olio. So here's an academic talking about the innovation that comes from diversity. And she says it's a competitive advantage. Heidi Abelli is in Boston. She says innovation comes from diversity of thought and experience. Creating an environment where diversity flourishes allows organizations in the digital economy, this new economy we're in, to be more innovative. Innovation, we've talked about it over and over. It's the key to sustaining competitive advantage over everyone else. It's unleashed when individuals convey respect for different perspectives, listen with an open mind, and foster inclusion and sharing. If everyone is working at cross purposes, if everyone is working on my little fiefdom, that's not innovating. That's just preserving what exists. So let's go to number 9. Sharon Doherty says that DEI is a business imperative. Let's see why. From a purely business standpoint, DEI drives better results and breeds innovation. We've established that. We know that leaders have a responsibility to make it clear diversity is no longer a compliance mandate. What she says, and she's people places officer of a company in the UK called Finastra. Building inclusive environments and employee experiences that value diversity is a business imperative. It's a must do. It's not an option anymore. It's not a, we hope you'll comply. It is, you will comply. Number 10, rounding the current turn to the end here. Inclusion can help combat work from home burnout. Oh my goodness, who has not experienced this? With teams working remotely for God knows, it's been what, 2 years? Employees are strongly feeling a lack of a sense of inclusion and belonging. Teams are already diverse. We're working remotely. We're maybe even working globally. But what companies need to adopt, according to Mahukar Govindaraju, founder and CEO of Numbly, he says companies need to adopt an empathetic view of work from home burnout. Encourage teams to focus on inclusion, helping them overcome and combat that burnout. And boy, am I with you on that. Number 11. Diverse cultures reach a wider audience. Does anyone want to reach fewer people? Although quote unquote diversity can refer to many different categories, race, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background, it goes on and on. John Feldman, who's a senior communications specialist in Insperity, says it really all boils down to diversity of thought. Companies with a diverse culture invite and accept more viewpoints, thus reaching that wider audience. It also provides an advantage over competitors who still have a homogenous culture. You know, we've always been this way. This is how we've always done things. Don't rock the boat. And also the advantages over fewer perspectives. If there's only the white guys in the boardroom, and no offense to the white guys in the Zoom call, but if it's just you guys, you're not doing everything you can to reach all your customers and all your employees, because companies are made up of more than just a bunch of white guys. I knew this to be true at ABC. And what was funny was, it wasn't until I came out that I suddenly started looking around and noticing, wow, a lot of us women are doing a lot of the work, but we're not represented in the boardroom. It's an interesting thing. Number 12, DEI is, or at least should be, critical to a company's values. It should be infused into every part of a business. That's what Jenna Henriksen, Director of Recruitment Strategy, she's the headhunter at Advanced RPO. She's the HR officer. It's the responsibility of executives and leaders to drive the culture. Adhering to company policies and values is a requirement of all employees, but those employees who don't support and uphold the company's values, including the leaders who don't do that, they should be reevaluated. Call on the carpet, ask to get on board or get off. Number 13, let's talk about inclusion as it applies to psychological safety. So Google did a study last year, Project Aristotle. It identified psychological safety as one of the most important factors of a high-performing team. What does that mean? It means employees feel included and be able to be their authentic self at work. And it frees up their mind and energy to focus on their performance. Like I said about my work at ABC, I wasn't working on hiding who I was. This also creates an overall more supportive team environment, according to Robin Kirby, who is Chief HR Officer at Benefit Focus. 14, we're in the final stretch. Increased empathy translates to increased team building. So a main benefit of DEI is an increase in empathy for and awareness of others in general. This translates to increased team building and more positive coworker relationships. It doesn't mean you have to be so personal about, well, my wife had her hysterectomy, or gee, my husband's going for his prostate exam. Oh, hey, TMI. I don't need to know that. But I do need to know you have a husband at home, or you have a wife, or that you're raising children, or that you have a parent who's suffering from Alzheimer's. I mean, empathy is important. We want to know what our team is going through. I think that the pandemic has given us a little better perspective by inviting the company into our homes. We see the kids running around causing trouble in the Zoom rooms and the WebExes. So rather than starting from a place of pointing out inadequacies, build on the idea of an end goal of connection and empathy. And that way you can create a space for openness and interest among your employees. That's the advice of Laura Spawn, who's CEO at Virtual Vocations. Last one. So a diverse, inclusive environment retains employees. Yes, we're at the retention slide. Retention is so important. If you hire somebody, you invest training in that person, and you work to make them part of the team, and then they go get another job. You just wasted all that money. You wasted all your time. Why did they leave? Maybe because their company doesn't welcome them, doesn't make them feel like they belonged. If employees feel more connected at work, they tend to work harder and are more committed to the company and the overall direction of the company. Employees tend to have higher morale and are more likely to stay within the company longer, says Heather Smith. She's Chief People Officer, a Senior Account Executive at Flimp Communications. So those are our 15 points. But what about transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming employees? I thought this was about those folks. So let me just tell you a little bit more about me. Thank you, Jennifer, for giving me that wonderful intro. I'm a transgender woman. Most people who meet me see a woman. I've been the target of the male gaze, catcalls, and I've had plenty of strange men make unwanted advances. You don't want to see what's in my other inbox on Facebook. Some people meet me and they see or they hear what they perceive to be a man who is, in their opinion, unconvincingly trying to be seen or heard as a woman. I've been confronted, I've been misgendered, dead named, and called a man to my face. Not fun. My effort to avoid harassment is to speak in a more typically feminine manner and dress in a way that is consistent with being seen as a woman, to be confident in my appearance. In those instances, I try to, quote unquote, pass, to be perceived as a cisgender woman. Most people I encounter see me that way, not everybody. I will add one little caveat. The drive-through, I don't speak the way I'm speaking to you now. This is my natural voice that I've been using for the last 9 years. My original voice was a lot deeper than this. I sort of consider this my Brenda Vaccaro voice. But at the drive-through, hi, can I get a Big Mac? If I don't say it like that, yes, sir, come right up, sir. So people hear something that they don't see sometimes. Here's a couple of numbers, and this is from a 2020 study. It's a national survey of US trans employees. 44%, a little more than 4 out of 10, reported having experienced hiring discrimination based on their gender identity. Half reported experiencing harassment at work. Half. Now, this is a couple of paragraphs from an article from April in Vice. And I'll just read it as quickly as I can. For many trans people in places where transness and other queer identities are not tolerated, passing may spell the difference between getting through the day safely and getting into life-threatening situations. Passing can also be a source of validation and gender euphoria for many trans people. It means, after all, that they are being recognized by others the same way they recognize themselves. By definition, passing is measured against the standards of how straight cisgender people typically look and act. And here's a quote from Violet Ritchie. She's 24. She's a trans woman. I know those aren't the things that make me a woman, but it helps with how people perceive me as one, she told Vice. So I want you to underscore this. It's important. Passing isn't as important to many trans people as it is to others, especially in Pride Month. Some people actually don't want to be passing. They don't want to be seen as cis. They want to be seen as transgender. And non-binary and gender non-conforming employees, clients and customers, they present an altogether different challenge. Few businesses are familiar with how to incorporate the full spectrum of gender diversity, particularly those with non-binary gender identities, into their LGBTQ plus diversity and inclusion initiatives. So they've got the LGBTQ guide, they have a handbook, they know what to do when someone comes out as gay or trans, and then comes along somebody who says, I'm non-binary, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm going to dress androgynously. Uh-oh. Non-binary individuals often experience significant rates of discrimination in the workplace. Almost a third experience discrimination in the hiring process alone. A contributing factor in gender-specific policies and practices, combined with a lack of understanding regarding non-binary identity, those are significant contributing factors to the negative experiences faced by non-binary employees. For these reasons and many others, a majority of non-binary employees remain closeted at work. They take great precautions to avoid further discrimination. That goes back to that part of the slides where I was telling you, you're not presenting your whole self at work. You're devoting energy into hiding who you are. I need to make sure everyone's on the same page here. So a quick 101, sex and gender are different. Sex is a social, legal, medical designation assigned at birth based on a medical assessment of an individual's body, usually an observation of external genitalia. Doctor picks up the baby, looks at the genitals, says, it's a boy. Doesn't see the male attributes and says, it's a girl. No, examination really other than their eyes. Gender is an individual's awareness of, an understanding of binary masculinity or femininity as assigned to people within specific historical, cultural, geographic ways of being. You'd be surprised at how different gender is in different cultures or in different histories. I think most of us may be aware that it used to be that the most manly color was pink and that little girls wore blue, and that switched around in the 18th century. Different cultures, different countries all have different ways of expressing gender. So, two more little things about gender and sex. Chaz Bono, who is Cher and Sonny Bono child, was a child star when they had a TV show back in the 70s, now is a out trans actor and activist. Chaz Bono says, sex is what's between my legs, gender is what's between my ears. A friend of mine, an author and scholar and mentor to me, Jennifer Finney Boylan, she said, sex is who I want to go to bed with. Gender is who I want to go to bed as. I hope those help everyone understand the difference between sex and gender. And by the way, she goes to bed with her wife. So people whose gender identity is different from their sex assigned or presumed at birth fall under the umbrella of transgender identity. But some individuals identify with a gender identity that is different from the sex they were presumed to be at birth. Some identify as neither, both, or somewhere in between female or male. Many use this word non-binary to describe this identity. So what is non-binary? It's a gender identity which falls outside of the gender binary, meaning an individual does not identify as strictly female or male. So if you're going to list gender identities, it's not male, female, transgender, because transgender people are typically binary. It's male, female, non-binary. It's a third gender identity. A non-binary person can identify as both or neither male or female, sometimes one or the other. It doesn't have to be always the same. There are several other terms you describe gender identities outside of the binary, such as genderqueer, gender nonconforming, agender, bigender. And while the term non-binary falls under the umbrella of transgender identity, it's important that you should note some non-binary people do not identify as trans. I should say, and some do. I made a mistake there. Sorry, a little typo. So some call themselves trans and some don't. Non-binary people are not necessarily trans people. Trans people are not necessarily non-binary people. And some people say they are trans non-binary. It's up to the individual. So identifying as transgender does not mean that particular individual is non-binary. Like I just said, transgender individuals can be non-binary. Most trans people identify as strictly male or female. I think I've repeated that enough. So what do I say to somebody who's non-binary? Well, hello is a good start. Hello. Or how about y'all, which means all. Greetings that include gender neutral language such as friends, folks, y'all, you all, everyone. Ensure that you include all employees when saying hello or opening a meeting. While many use these terms about the intention to exclude others, gendered language does not acknowledge or validate the existence of those who identify outside of the gender binary. So we're going to ask you to rethink common gendered phrases and adjust by using more inclusive gender neutral language. Here's some examples. Don't say ladies and gentlemen. Hey, you guys. The New York City subway system in the last year dropped ladies and gentlemen from all of its announcements. And now they just say, hello, riders. I mean, it's as simple as that. Say instead of ladies and gentlemen or you guys, hello, everyone. Hi, y'all. I used to work in the South, so I feel I can say y'all. Not everybody feels comfortable, but I think it's a great word. Don't say his or her job responsibilities will include. No, say their job responsibilities will include. It's the same thing, it works. Check your online and paper documentation to make it more inclusive. Why are your forms stuck in the binary? Examine, update existing documents, policy handbooks, procedures, remove gender-specific language, or include options beyond just male and female. Hello, come on, computer. Computer decided to take a vacation. There it is. So what's with all these pronouns? Asking someone their pronouns, which should be all together there, or sharing yours is not being quote unquote woke or an endorsement of an ideology. It's just a sign of respect because it's kind to call people what they want to be called, right? One way to signal company inclusion is to include pronouns in your email signature. I've had college students where I teach at University of Hartford say, whenever they get an email from someone and their pronouns are in the signature, they know that that person will be supportive. When they don't see it, they question it. So here are a few ways companies can demonstrate pronoun inclusivity. When introducing yourself, include your name and pronouns. Hi, I'm Karen. My pronouns are she, hers. Welcome to the team. It's not that hard. Know that it's okay. If the employee does not respond by stating their own pronouns, the point is to create a space for individuals to voluntarily provide the pronouns if they want to. It's not a mandate. Practice using gender neutral pronouns at your own time. Feeling comfortable with these terms does not happen immediately, and it can require concerted effort. I sometimes have to put little Post-it notes on my laptop when I interview somebody whose pronouns are they, them, to remind myself that even if my eyes think I'm looking at someone who identifies as male or female, that their pronouns are they, them. That's a cheat sheet. It works. If someone were to tell you their name is Joseph or Margaret, hopefully you would not call them Joe or Joey. Hey, Joey, or Marge, Peggy, without first asking if they have a nickname they like. And if you would do that, don't do it. I don't know why people decide, I'm going to call you a name that is not your name. So if you want to do that, don't call them a pronoun that is not their pronoun. People who are non-binary often use a variety of pronouns, from she to her to they to them, and beyond. It's sometimes a combination like she, they. Calling someone you're perceived to be a man, sir, or a woman, ma'am, miss, or even Ms. is also a potential landmine. Some people, especially non-binary people, use mix, sometimes pronounced mux, MX period. It's different than Mr. or Ms. or Miss. It's mix, MX period. They and them may seem very new to you, some of you, or someone you love and respect. But these pronouns have been around since Shakespeare. We're talking hundreds of years. We already use them without even meaning to when we reference non-binary folks. We use them all the time. Here's an example. So Bob asked, hey, you know whose umbrella this is? I think somebody accidentally left it behind. You say, oh, that's Mary's umbrella. I'll go look for them. You didn't think Mary's non-binary, but you say them. Whose umbrella is it? It's not mine. Is it theirs? I don't know. No, you might have also said her, but it's not as if Bob wouldn't know what you meant. Using they, them won't offend anyone, but misgendering someone who's non-binary or transgender can be really hurtful. And when it's accidental, it happens, all right? Here's what to do. The first thing you should do if you misgender somebody is apologize. Second, correct yourself. Third, don't make it a big deal. Just move on. They don't want it to be a big deal. You don't want it to be a big deal. Talking about why you made the mistake isn't necessary. Bringing more attention to your mistake centers you, not the person you inadvertently offended. Just, oh, I'm sorry. I meant she. Sorry. I should have said he. Moving on. Now, what if you witness someone misgendering somebody? So long as it's not intentional, the same rules apply. Let that person know, hey, Bob goes with they, them. Second, tell them what pronouns to use, like I just did. And don't say preferred pronouns. They're just pronouns. Third, don't make it a big deal. Just move on. But if you get the sense that the misgendering was intentional, have a conversation with that person. Hey, Bob. You know what I mean? Talk to them. Straighten them out. What allies can and should do. Allies are all of you who aren't LGBTQ. Allies are anybody who doesn't oppose people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, asexual, agender. The list goes on. Intersex. What people in my community are asking you to do is stand up. Stand up to bullies, help support marginalized folks, no matter how they identify. Call out jokes as well as slurs. Yeah, we can all take a joke, but when it comes to punching down on more marginalized folks, it's just not funny. And if anybody here knows who Dave Chappelle is, you can tell him that from me. You don't have to be gay to support same-sex marriage or transition to support trans folks. If you're against same-sex marriage, don't get gay married. If you're opposed to gender transitions, then I suggest you stay the gender you are. Just be kind. It doesn't cost you anything. In the workplace, all these folks cause issues, or so I'm told. Office management should determine if there are opportunities to include gender-neutral restrooms in your building. If companies have single-use restrooms, the single ones that you just open the door and it's just you, you could convert them to all gender facilities, like the one on the right, all gender restroom, and utilize the sign like the one at the right, the American with Disabilities Act compliance signage. It doesn't reinforce gender binary, such as an image of a toilet in lieu of gendered pictograms. I'm not going to show you, but you've probably seen it. It's the man symbol versus the woman symbol in a dress, and sometimes it's a half man, half woman, or it's all kinds of weird things. All we need to know is there's a toilet inside, right? And let me tell you one quick story. At ABC News, HR told me, well, on the floor below your office, you have a single stall bathroom and we'd like you to use that. And I told them, no, I'll be using the ladies' room. And anybody who objects to my presence in the ladies' room, they can go to the single stall bathroom. And HR sat back in their chair and they said, okay. Dress codes. I don't know if you have dress codes where you work. A lot of people wear jeans and khakis to work nowadays, but some companies and some of our clients are going to have dress codes, and they commonly include gender language. Appropriate attire is frequently listed in categories of male and female, which leaves non-binary individuals wondering how and where they fit in. The purpose of company dress codes is not to enforce gendered attire for employees, but rather to ensure that they are dressed in professional and functional wear. Millennials and Generation Z identify as non-binary and gender fluid at higher rates than previous generations. We're talking like 7%. Simple changes in the dress code policy can ensure that certain attire is appropriate without using gendered language. I've written lots of stories about dress codes. Some of the airlines are actually now allowing their flight attendants to wear whatever uniforms they feel matches their gender expression, which is great. And what about transgender athletes? I imagine that none of you are currently engaged in sports, but because it's a prominent issue, I wanted to briefly touch upon this. Did you know that the Olympic Charter calls sport a human right? Well, regardless of that, across the United States and around the world, restrictions are being enacted and proposed by sports agencies and lawmakers to ban trans athletes, especially student athletes, meaning kids, from competing according to their gender identity, meaning if they were presumed to be male at birth and they identify as female, they want to compete with women and girls. But the bans across the United States, more than a dozen, say that they can't. They have to compete according to their birth gender. A new poll came out and suggests that most Americans, especially older conservative respondents, do not believe trans athletes should compete except in competitions matching the gender they were assigned at birth. The poll also shows that 6 out of 10 people think that we are whatever gender we're born at birth. So that basically means I'm not who I say I am. That's really disappointing. But back to sports. So this is a slide that I created for a graduate school project that I'm working on. It's not my thesis, but it was something along those lines. And it's a lot of words here, but let me try and guide you through it. So it's about the spread of misinformation and outright lies about trans athletes. On the left, you'll see a map. In dozens of these states across the US, the controversial movement to enact legislation outlawing gender-affirming healthcare for transgender and non-binary youth and banning trans student athletes from public school sports is, quote, a solution in search of a problem, according to civil rights advocates. The red states are where sports bans were introduced in 2022. The bright yellow states are where sports laws were signed into law in 2022. And the slightly shadier yellow, the lighter yellow, our sports bans have already been signed into law. They already exist. The gray states are where student athletes can compete according to their gender identity. Connecticut, Massachusetts, a lot of New England, just not New Hampshire. The gray states are the states that are allowing people to be who they are. The red states, the yellow states, the bright yellow states don't want trans athletes to compete with people matching their gender identity. So how many of these state lawmakers are responding to an actual problem within their borders? Well, here's some numbers. There are 270,000 high school students who are trans out of 15 million high school students. That's 1.8%. All right, 1.8%. Of the 15 million, how many high school students play sports? 8 million, about half. How many high school students who play sports and are trans? 14% of trans boys, 12% of trans girls. That's 35,000 trans student athletes out of 15 million, 0.44%. That's the problem that these lawmakers are fighting. So to the right, what are these anti-trans lawmakers getting their information? Where are they getting their information that's behind this legislation? Well, it's a network of powerful Christian conservative lobbyists and legal groups. They got their start in the religious freedom movement of the 1990s. This network has helped draft and promote the recent wave of copycat bills across the country while providing a well-financed body of legal defense. These are the groups: the Promise to America's Children, a coalition that's formed with the Heritage Foundation, the Alliance for Defending Freedom, the Family Policy Alliance, all of them offering legislators simple sample bills that it can copy and paste on its website. Well, what does the science say? A lot of people say, let's just trust the science. No one has studied elite trans women athletes, comparing them to elite cisgender athletes. I think we can all agree that an elite athlete is not the same as an average person. I sit on my couch and eat chips. You're not going to compare me to an elite cisgender athlete. No one has studied trans girl athletes compared to cis girl athletes. No one has looked at muscle mass of trans women compared to cis women adjusted for height. There's no published data comparing the muscle mass of trans athletes to cis athletes. The only studies conducted so far compare men to women, which of course presumes that you think trans women are men. Compares average trans women, like me on my couch with my chips, to average cis women, and trans women at the Air Force Academy to cis women Air Force Academy cadets. Now, I will bet you the Air Force Academy cadets are probably a lot more fit than I am, but they're not elite athletes. So why are we judging them as indicative? So what we do know is this: science says trans women will maintain some strength advantage over cis women, even after years of hormone therapy. Now, hormone therapy has been required for a dozen years in terms of sports, except in states like Connecticut. In Connecticut, any athlete in a school can compete without needing any kind of intervention. But what we don't know is the magnitude of this advantage and whether it's unfair, because sports is all about advantage. If it wasn't about advantage, Michael Phelps would have been challenged on his huge wingspan and his incredible speed. Same with Usain Bolt, same with Elena Deladon in the WNBA. Having an advantage is okay, but not for trans people. So that is the end of my share. And we are back in the room. Oh, look, no one's sleeping. That's good. Here's what's left. Your questions. Bring them on. Nicole, Rachel, Jennifer, whoever's in charge, give me a question. And please understand this, folks. You may not feel comfortable asking some questions. You may feel like, you know what? I don't want to be seen as a transphobe. You won't be. This is Las Vegas, okay? What happens here stays here. I can't be offended. There's nothing that you can say or ask me that will offend me. And if you don't feel comfortable asking in this presentation, the host will give you my email address or social media so you can reach out that way.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So thank you, Dawn. That was a tour de force, highly entertaining and also extremely informative. I thought maybe we might talk a little bit about that last slide, because it seems to me, and I may be wrong, that really none of it has anything to do with athletics at all. It is good. It is seen as good politics. They believe it to be good politics, and they believe that presenting something that feels intuitive to the 6 out of 10 people that you described, which is that, put simply, boys are stronger than girls, and it's no fair if boys get to play with girls, will move voters to their point of view on issues completely separate from issues related to trans. So that's my critique, that you don't have to adopt that or not adopt that. But I'm curious, given that this is more symbol than it is actual, although there are real people who will suffer for that symbol, right? There are real athletes that will suffer. What have you found, or what does the research say is the best ways to change minds when we're really fighting what I think is more of a proxy war than an actual war? But again, push back even on the premise as well.
Not at all. I just wrote an op-ed before this meeting for the HuffPost about the state of things, and being a pawn, being seen as, you know, we are the Red Scare of the 1950s. We are the Godzilla monsters of the science fiction films. We're the aliens who are come to take over the earth. We are the people who politicians are using as that unknown threat. Because what do politicians need more than anything? Something to gin up the base, and it's often fear. So what's happening is they're capitalizing on the fact that most people don't know someone like me to spread fear and misinformation. And as we've learned from, no politics here, but the previous administration capitalized on people not listening to any other voices except for the official voice. And to this day, media still is siloed, that people only hear what they want to hear. The solution to that problem that you're addressing is stories. The woman I cited before is my mentor. Her mother told her when she came out, nobody can hate you who knows your story. The more times people who are engaged in anti-trans legislation and laws can meet youth and myself and other trans advocates and get to know us and realize, why are we doing this? First of all, I have this long-going debate with Martina Navratilova, who calls us cheaters. What man on earth is going to take hormones, grow breasts, just to win a friggin' trophy? Trust me, they won't. It's a real mind-blowing experience being on hormones. And I'm telling you, the surgery made my life so much better because I feel and experience life as a woman, but I didn't do it to win a trophy, nor does any trans woman. And it's stories like those, real life, real people, that hopefully will eventually turn the tide. But I don't see it happening anytime soon. I'm going to be honest. After Roe, they're already using bodily autonomy and the decision by Alito in Alabama to press forward with more anti-trans legislation. And, you know, I care about reproductive rights just as much as I cared about civil injustice and fixing things in 2020. I don't need to be Black to feel outrage about the criminal justice system, but I don't need to be a woman, a cisgender woman, to care about reproductive rights. I don't want a man telling me what to do with my body either. So for us, I think it's a long game. We have to look at what has been established right now in convincing in getting the country to a place where we'd have conservative justices. And we have to look at the same long game if we want to have progressive politics. And that's just a little bit of politics for you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dawn. I have a question as well.
Please.
I had to join a little bit late, so I apologize if you talked
Oh,
about
you missed the best part.
I know, I'm so sorry.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But I was just wondering, you kind of segued into talking about this a little bit already, but talking about the decision and especially the Supreme Court decision, and then especially talking about reproductive health, I have noticed a lot, and I've also done this, of talking about women's rights and saying this is an attack on women, when I know, and I have seen on social media that it's a lot more inclusive and accurate to say people who can get pregnant or pregnant people's rights. So I was wondering, as we talk about this both internally in Keystone and also, on social media and other things, is there any language that you think that we should be mindful of, or anything in general that we should be mindful of regarding the inclusivity of the debate?
I think that all of us have heard, and I predicted this, it's not surprising, that Roe versus Wade protected women's reproductive rights, and the abortion decision impacts women. Well, it's a small percentage, but there are trans men and non-binary individuals who have uteri, who have uteruses, and are impacted, okay? And just because they're a small number doesn't mean we should completely erase them. I don't necessarily buy in that we should always use pregnant people, or we should always eliminate women from the conversation. Women are people, right? So calling them people is not an offense, but I understand that some people see it as a political statement. So I would say choose your arena. In some arenas where people are more progressive or able to accept that cisgender women aren't the only ones who get pregnant, I think pregnant people is acceptable. In the wider scope of things, I think we could say women and others. I don't think it's wrong to say that. I don't think it disrespects the trans men community. I don't think it disrespects the non-binary community. It acknowledges them by being othered, but at the same time, it still includes them by not just saying women. But it is fraught with political, like everything these days, with political backlash. Another word, okay, I'm gonna say this word I never use out loud: tranny, transvestite, transsexual. All those words belong in the past. First of all, tranny is a slur that some trans people use the way some gay people use fag or queer. I hate those words. I don't hate queer. I call myself queer, but fag was something I heard in grade school all the time. So I'm not a big fan of fag, but some gay men like using that word. Okay. Some Black people use the N-word. Okay, that's their choice. I would never use the N-word no matter what the setting is. But tranny for me is an offensive word. And some people in the trans community do use it. One wrote a book about it with calling himself a tranny. I use the word tranny when I describe what happened to me when I came out 9 years ago. I had reporters going up and down the block, knocking on my neighbors' doors, asking if they knew the tranny who lived next door. I had reporters hiding in bushes. It's horrible. Transvestite means a man who gets sexual pleasure out of dressing up in a female gender. Do you know the difference between a trans woman and a cross-dresser? A cross-dresser can't wait to get home and put on her bra. A trans woman can't wait to get home and take hers off. So don't use transvestite unless you're talking specifically about somebody who gets a sexual kink out of cross-dressing. And transsexual, it's not inaccurate. I guess I'm a transsexual since I had the surgery. But even that word, have you had the surgery, is something I'd ask you not to ask trans people. It's none of your business what's in their pants. When someone asks me if you had the surgery, I always say, oh, first, tell me about your prostate exam. Or how was your latest internal exam? What was your mammogram like? And most women are like, I don't want to talk to you about that. It's too personal. Exactly. So here's a question from Megan. Megan Montiero. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. She says, thank you, da, 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 da. There's so much gender language surrounding the latest Roe versus Wade ruling. Wait, did we just answer that one?
Sorry, I sent that right as
Oh.
Keisha was starting to speak. We were very much on the same
Sorry,
page.
Megan.
Thank you.
I answered it twice now, so there you go.
Thanks.
Who's left? Thank you, Megan.
I see Jim has a question.
Anybody?
Yes,
Hi,
I had a
Don.
question.
Hey, whoever's first.
Jim, you were first. Please go
Oh,
ahead.
sure.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah. Hi, Don. Thank you very much for the presentation.
welcome.
I particularly found that your advice about use of language really helpful. My question was about something you mentioned about like receiving sort of abuse in the cyber world. And I wondered if you could just speak a bit more about that. In particular, I was wondering, like, mentally, how do you deal with that? Like, do you compartmentalize it? Do you respond to any of it to try to educate? Like, what's the approach you take there?
Thank you, Jim. One of our slogans in our community is never read the comments. People in their underwear who use phony avatars and phony names don't deserve your time. And you're just basically arguing with someone on the internet that they're wrong. What's the point in that? However, as someone in the public eye, I often do engage, especially on my own stories, with people who have, let's call them contrary views. It is a lot of heavy lifting. I have been besieged by death threats, both in my mailbox outside my house, in the mail, in my email, in my voicemail, in that other box you get on Facebook. I've had people come up to me, as I said, to my face. And for the most part, it's anonymous. For the most part, it's not, physical, but it's still violence. It still has effects. And this is why we have therapy. I found that being a journalist helps an extraordinarily large amount. On September 11th, I just wanted to crawl up into a ball and cry, but I didn't. I put those feelings, as you mentioned, compartmentalized in a box, and I dealt with them when I got to the hotel 14 hours later or whatever it was. I was at Sandy Hook. I was the first one from ABC News there. And my job was to try and get moms and dads who just learned their little first graders had been murdered to talk to me. And I put down my camera and I put away the microphone. And as they came out of the firehouse, having just learned about the massacre and that they wouldn't be seeing their kids ever again, I just whispered, "I'm so sorry." Now, if my boss had found that out, they probably would have fired me. But instead, that mom remembered my kindness that day. And instead of being one of the vultures who surrounded her, she remembered later when we went and tried to get people to talk to us about their children. And she rewarded my kindness with exclusive interview. So I did my job. But that day I had to remember that even though I have a first grader at home, my job was to try and do this job as best I can. So you compartmentalize. And when it comes to abuse, we all basically react in different ways. Some people get very angry about being misgendered, and there's been lots of viral videos like that. My reaction generally when I get misgendered is to act like any other cisgender woman was. You called me a man? Are you crazy? I'll die inside later. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
There was someone else. I couldn't hear who it was.
Hi, Don. I'm Hygrieve here. I mean, as Jeff mentioned, like your presentation style is really entertaining, and I just love your speaking style. So thanks a lot for making this presentation. So I just had like more or less like like a question/comment. So I mean, you made a lot of points about like how DIL helps organizations in terms of like trying to generate higher revenues, trying to be more innovative and stuff. Like, I mean, and personally, I do hold the same beliefs, but for someone who's like a skeptic of all of these ideas that you just spoke about.
Yes.
Like I think it kind of helps, because like when you say, oh, I reduce costs and that helps me increase profits, there's a direct link between reducing costs and increasing profit. there isn't a direct link between increasing diversity and increasing revenue. So maybe if you had some stories of, how exactly diversity relates to diversity led to X, led to Y, led to increase in revenue, or diversity led to X, led to Y, and then that's how it helped, help the firm be more innovative. And if there's like a collection of stories you have, because you have such a rich experience of talking to so many people. If there's like a collection of stories you could publish in a blog or something of how exactly diversity led to all of these things, I think that would be fantastic. I mean, maybe you already have it or something, but if you do have, please post it in the chat here.
You're correct. I have stories like this. I also, in addition to teaching and writing for 6 or 7 different outlets, I write for a news magazine called Senior Executive. And one of my beats is DEI. So if it's okay with you, I'll send to Rachel and Jennifer and everyone the link to my latest, and Nicole, my latest story about DEI. And so it'll have some stories in there about why it's important. Thank you. I appreciate that question.
No, thank you so much, Don.
You're welcome. I'm sorry I couldn't include it in the PowerPoint, but as it was, it went way over the time I thought it was going to take. I guess I told too many little stories. Rachel or Nicole, do we have time for more, or we have to wrap?
Just in the effort of being conscious of time, I know folks have been dropping off as they need to, but I want to say thank you so much, Don. I think we should wrap just so folks can move on to their 2 o'clocks. I want to appreciate the time that you spent with us and the time that you spent telling your stories. And I also really want to acknowledge that the difference that you've called out in the potential to change our society really is in these conversations and in these stories. So I want to thank you, not just for being here today, but for telling your story and being a storyteller to help make that change happen.
Well, I'm very pleased to be able to do it. I just put in the chat both my email and my social media handle. It's pretty easy. It's my name @gmail.com, no dots or dashes. And before I came out, I was imagining what it would be like to be myself. And I created a blog 15 years ago called Life After Dawn. And that's what my social media is. So there it is. So please, you don't have to even follow me if you don't want to, just DM me. DMs are open. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Don.
Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Don.
Thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Keystone.
Thank you so much, Don. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you, everyone.